Hi everyone and welcome back to the channel, and in today's video we're going to try to build something together. Literally, this is going to be a live build of an agent that I'm trying to build with N8N, which covers a lot of cool features which I'm going to explain in a second. But also you get to see how many problems you face while building a complete automation or something. Most of the videos that I've also created and what you see online are the end product of hours of effort, right? So again, and this also showcases how we use AI, right? Again, what are the errors you face and how do you solve those errors? So what I've taken is a very real use case. One of my friends shared this with me. There is someone who is looking for this kind of a use case, and she said, Akshat, can you build something and then I can showcase this to my client? And I was like, completely fine, let's try it out. It's always fun to build something which is a bit more tricky and also a bit more new for me to build around. Now again, what we're going to try to do here is going to be simply try to replicate a popular product called Clay. If you don't know what Clay is, let me explain you, right? So this is what Clay as an app is like. This is like a go-to market app, right? You can utilize to create your whole planning. You can find leads, you can enrich that data and do a lot of other cool stuff. But we are going to look at what are the core features. Most of the time people use Clay to find leads and get data about those leads and then be able to run their marketing campaigns on the same. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at the three most common features that Clay has, right? So it's finding leads, enriching leads, sending initial messages, mails, etc. Now just to showcase to you that this is a very real environment. These are the requirements that I got. Obviously I'm pretty sure the client has used AI to generate all of these requirements and then just drop them in. But again, we get the idea that they are looking for a replica to Clay which they can utilize it, right? So again, very simply, that's the goal. And very clearly we are going to try to build that. Now before we start building anything, you have to focus on what are the three core features of anything, right? My two goals are finding leads and enriching them with data, and the goal being, how do I do that in the cheapest way? Now already I had started building this, but again, let's think about from a live build perspective. Now first of all, finding leads, again I need to think about, okay, where are the places that people actually find leads from? So if I had to say very simply, most time people find leads from LinkedIn, right? Or they'll be using some kind of other scraping tool. So you might be scraping on local businesses, right? So that might be Google Maps, and could be other multiple options like other different websites, similar tools. Instagram could be one if you're in the social media business and you're looking for influencers and stuff. But again, that keeps growing. Then very simply, let's just bring this here. And then enriching leads, right? Now what does enriching leads mean? Very simply, enriching is getting more data about the lead, right? And then also about telling enriching data is getting their contact information or some signals, right? Contact info plus signals, right? So again, that's what we are looking for. These are the two things that we want to do. Now again, one more thing that very simply we have to understand is whatever again, based on the requirements, there is this thing mentioned, PhantomBuster, that they utilize for finding data and everything else. Now again, let's say that's a requirement, but also you have to think around what is the most easiest way to get done. So once we have this the idea, okay, this is where what kind of leads I want to find, this is how I want to enrich. Now you need to understand, okay, what tool am I going to use? So obviously N8N is going to be our go-to factor. Now again, very simply, N8N, I already have it hosted in XYZ, but this is how N8N looks like. Again, beautiful product, right? You can do everything with it. But again, the idea is N8N itself can't do anything. The one thing that we need to understand is we need to utilize information from multiple places to bring it together in N8N and then finally create a system. So given that we are going to focus on these two things, what we need to do is very simply look at a perspective of what can work with LinkedIn, because LinkedIn is probably the biggest gold mine of data for anyone who is working in any kind of lead outreach or is utilizing to reach out to prospects and everything. Most people, 90% of people use LinkedIn, right? Everyone is using LinkedIn for something, right? Everyone is using LinkedIn to actually prospect. So we're going to use something called PhantomBuster, right? So this is the dashboard, right? This is how PhantomBuster looks like. Let me get you to the home page so you guys can see what this is, right? Again, so this is PhantomBuster. I think again, warm leads every day. Very simply, these are automations and everything that you can create within PhantomBuster also, and also create multiple solutions on different platforms. So you can see even we can link Google here, right? Google Maps search export or data export and everything else. And then you have LinkedIn, which has by far the most number of, I believe, solutions available here. And then you can see all the flows that you can. Now again, just to understand about PhantomBuster, obviously we'll be setting up multiple of them. PhantomBusters use something called phantoms, right? So they are called phantoms. Now what are phantoms? Very simply, if I bring you here, right, to my dashboard and show you my phantoms. So I have a LinkedIn search phantom where technically I can input keywords or a search URL or a spreadsheet URL to search from and everything, and then it will go ahead and search based on those keywords or the search URL. Then again, it obviously connects to my personal LinkedIn account. Now again, obviously you should not be using your personal LinkedIn account a lot because there are restrictions on how much LinkedIn allows you to scrape, etc. And then obviously you have the behavior and everything else, how many results to export and everything else, and then finally launch as required. I'm just going to choose like once, and it technically is a launch manually option, and then we'll see how this goes. We are just going to save and close this. But now, once you have this, you also have to understand, okay, what does the flow look like? So now for me, very simple process always here is go back to ChatGPT. Again, I have the O3 model, and I've given that here are all the phantoms that exist in PhantomBuster. I want to utilize PhantomBuster mostly to build this whole thing. So it went out, I took like the whole page, right? As you can see, this is like a massive page. Based on this, how can I recreate clay functionality here, right? So it went down, it's understood all the phantoms that exist, and then literally has given me a list of items that I can just literally use from there. I really just need to implement this N8N. Obviously, we'll face like a lot of issues, and then also I want to create this third part of sending messages and emails. So we're going to try to do that. But again, understand that you can do a lot with ChatGPT by just asking it the right questions. So I wanted to use PhantomBuster, took all of that data, put that here, and now I'm going to progress in N8N to build this. Now let's come back to N8N. Right now, again, very simply, I was already trying to do a couple of things here. Right, so again, I'll show you like again what we have right now. So if I just to say, you can put in a search URL, you can put the keywords, and then that set in a field. I don't technically need this, I can just do it as from here. But I was testing this, and then you have the N8N agent which I'm running from here. So this is the first agent which we are technically running, and I'll rename this is going to be finding, right? Finding profiles, and obviously we need to finding profiles, right? And we need to like I'll show you how to run this, and then this is like again rename is to get output, right? Now very simply, this is how the workflow looks like, right? So what I'm going to do is very simply N8N finding profiles gets output. What is the next step is again get PhantomBuster, right? And click on this, and then we are going to technically run an agent again, right? So again, you can see there are 5 options. We can get all agents, get an agent, get the output of an agent, or something like that. We technically want to use get an agent, and the reason behind that is I want to get how the API call looks like. So next step, if you see, is first is search export, right? So I already have the search export option created here. Let me just run this, and I'm going to test technically. Wait, stop this, and let me just go ahead and technically try to run this. Okay, so I'll come in here, I'll put a LinkedIn search URL which I already have, right? So I did a search, and then I have keywords. I'm going to submit this, has been recorded, and then technically it should run. Now I'm not sure if it would have got any output because it's still running the API call, right? So it takes a couple of seconds to run the API call with Phantom, right? So if I see here, and if I come back here, you'll see that in running, right? It already is running, right? This particular Phantom about search, which has all my details, is running right now. But what happens if you see here is very simply, it takes time to run this, right? So we did not get any output. So we need to add some kind of a delay here, right? So I think a minute is fine to cover all use cases and everything, and we can keep that. Now, so if you see here, it's a run, and we're going to remove this filter, and it has been a success. It has probably got 10 profiles. I just searched for like a popular company called Flipkart, and they found like all these amazing details about that, right? So now let's say we have got the output. Right now, if I click play, right, and then technically it should be, it's now waiting for a minute, and then it will run that. So I'll obviously fast forward that piece, but I hope you understand how we have just added a simple phantom. Now again, I'm going to show you the whole process on how to add it from scratch of the other phantoms, but the idea is that this is how you think in a step-by-step manner, right? So you have to think, okay, LinkedIn we're going to use, right, and then you're going to use PhantomBuster, right, and then you technically have your whole ChatGPT telling you that you need to do search, you need to scrape their profiles, get company employees if you want to, and then connect and send them a message if you want to, because those are the 5 things that will allow us to build the complete core features that we wanted. So finding leads, enriching them, and sending them an initial message or mail. So if you see here, very simply, we have finally got all this data available, right? So it ran the output, it took a minute, and got the last output. So whatever the last run was, it has got all the information. Now what I can do with this information is very simply, I want to put this all in a Google Sheet, right? And that's the next step, right? Because again, remember, every time you're building some kind of an agent, you need a single place where you can run all of these repository from. So what I'm going to do is run this and go to Sheets, right? And go to Google Sheets, and very simply, I'm going to append or update a row or append a row in sheet, right? So again, there are 2 options. Either I can append the data, which is like technically sheet data exists in a single place, create something, or do everything in Excel. I'm just going to append or update a row, right? And then in this, what I'm going to do is, I have already, if you see, I created a simple Google Sheet, right? Again, this is just like a blank Google Sheet, nothing created here. What we're going to do is, we're going to understand all these options, right? Again, what was the output look like, right? So if in a tabular format, this is how it will look. So you have like, job title, range, and everything else. And I'm just going to literally copy paste all of this data, right? And just for a second, paste this here so that I have, and obviously we don't need this in this format. I have here, and I'll show it to you in a second. Now again, it depends on what we want to capture, but it captures around 26 different columns coming from PhantomBuster, right? So this is my easiest way to just build out the table of what I want. Now, do I want everything? I just want profile URL, yes. Full name, first name, last name, yes, okay. Job title, okay. Like if I have the full name, I technically don't want, but again, let's like keep that. Additional information, location, fine, connection degree, okay. Profile image URL, I don't know, like I don't think I'm going to run anything on that, so I can just technically like, mark that as like red or something. Like I can hide that. But then you have the query, category, timestamp, shared connections, if any, company URL, company URL. It's obviously super important. So again, like, need them. Industry, company to, company URL, etc. and scroll to, right? Again, so obviously a lot of data, ton of data, right? And then you have 26 different columns. Now, if I want to add all of this data from here to a Google Sheet, I come back here and then I select not Google Sheets. I have like again account, Google Sheets, sheet within a document, and then append or update row. From list, it will allow me to select a particular option, N8N replica sheet. So I'm just going to select the sheet that I've already created. Click on the sheet and select sheet. Right now, it literally has map each column manually or map automatically. Right. So if I use automatically, it will automatically do it. But also, I kind of like the map column manually because that allows me to select which column I need to keep, which column I don't want, and then I can just remove them. Right. So if you see here, right, again, column to match on, why is that, right? Let's say you are finding duplicate data, right? Let's say you run the query again and it goes in and checks out the same information and you'll just have multiple duplicate rows. If you don't use this particular option, append or update, it just goes ahead and creates a new row every time. And that's very super important to understand. And you will only understand that by experience of doing a couple of these things. So we are going to use this. And then we're going to use profile URL. So I am going to use profile URL to have the information. And then again, I'm going to capture and put this here, right? So this is obviously manually do this. I think I don't think anyone of you needs to be taught how to do this, but just drag and drop whatever is needed. Now again, if you see, I've already input all of this. I've removed the timestamp and shared connection. I don't need that, right? Again, and one thing you will see is again, I technically should refresh this information because now you will be able to see there will be different columns, right? And those columns technically match to the information that I've put. Now what I can do is simply I can just click on test step, and if it works, then it should technically be able to input all this data which is available here, right? And that's perfectly great because that's what I'm looking for, right? Now one thing is obviously quickly what we can do is just simply do some quick formatting, right? So I'll just select the whole sheet, make sure that technically we have same format applied across everywhere, right? So I'm just going to drag and drop that. Obviously I could have done it, but then I don't want to change the header. That's also some things you don't see, making it clean up and all of those things, making it look better, kind of aligning this in the middle and then making sure that all of this stays in the middle, right? Is something just we never think about, right? These are also some small artifacts that you need to keep changing to deliver an actual product. Okay, we have got enough quality of data right now, but one thing you get to see is very simply in this I'm getting technically pretty much a lot about the profile, right? Now what more is going to come? Probably we can get the description of someone's LinkedIn profile, maybe we can get a couple of other things from their job descriptions and everything else. But that also does not feel super great. Scraping the profile gives anything other than basic description or some bit more educational information. You already have a lot of information the company information, the job titles and everything. I think job title coming in the first shot is itself a crazy thing to come in search. And then also to be mindful that again, when you're thinking of creating really good automations and workflows and actually production level, not something that I'm just creating for a YouTube video. When you're creating stuff for people, right? You're creating stuff for clients and everything else. You need to understand that you need to be mindful of the cost also that it will take them to run this, because if you have an extremely expensive agent that's running, then there's a high probability that they will have to come back and say, what, we need to reduce cost on this because this is too much. Because most of us, when we are building it from a developer mindset, right? Let's just build the best product, but there is also some very real use cases that you need to think around. Okay, how does this scale? How many people can use this? How much will this cost to run every month? And all of this. So I think there is enough information. Now for me, the next step is actually to get also their email, because this is decent information, but I need a bit more enrichment. If you look at Clay, right, and the way they do enrichment, and I think I've already logged in here. Yep. So I'll just show you this was a test for one of the customers, right? So you get the LinkedIn and everything else. So then just to show you what Clay can do, you can see there are so many multiple options, right? You have text, number, currency, email. You can merge columns. You can even use AI to create a whole message or something like that. and everything, and it really depends on what you are trying to do. But let's say we want to get the emails here, right? Because we are not actually getting the emails for any one of these people, right? So what we're going to do is very simply come back here and then go to our favorite tool called Apollo, right? Again, if you don't know what Apollo is probably one of the best tools there in the world to find emails, right? I just searched for Apollo documentation and came to their docs, right? Again, and why I'm showing you this is so you understand, like, going and reading documentation when you're building this, right? And you can see there are multiple options available here, right? So again, you have people enrichment, right? Again, which is like to enrich data for up to 10 people with a single endpoint, right? So we can get more information, you get the name, email, and everything else, right? So you can see what we need to give as an input, right? So what needs to be our input and what more information we can get about that person. So this is how the query looks like. You can see like in the query parameters, right? What we can give to get back the information from there. So you get the hashed email or something like that, and then the org name, organization, and everything. But if you see, we technically want to utilize LinkedIn to get the information about people, right? Let's see, is that available anywhere? So what I'm going to do is very simply come back to AI without wasting time. Like, let's come back to AI, and again I found, like, which places where I can use this. I'm going to create a new thread, and how can I input a LinkedIn profile link and search for an email using Apollo API, right? And that's going to be the question, right? Again, how can I input a link and just get like an email? And then technically Perplexity do what Perplexity does it best, right? Again, you use the people engine point by providing the LinkedIn profile as an input, right? So again, let's see. Now if I go back to people enrichment, right? Again, like technically I would have found that, and then search LinkedIn profile. Yep, perfect. And then we can input that. So if we can input that, and that's a query parameter, then we can technically should be able to get this, right? So let's see. So the best way to do this is, like, you see the curl request and everything, but we need to create an API key. So you can see, like, there is an option, like, getting an API key. So see on the left, right, you will always see, like, developer documentation is pretty standardized across the world, right? Thank God for that. And then you can come to authentication, right? Again, I've just opened it in a new tab. So you can come to authentication, click on create an API key, and it gives you like how to do that whole process. And this will be same for any tool. I'm just showing this you in depth so that you are not scared with any new technology that you're looking at. Again, you can see there are multiple options which directly connect, right? But given that we are just going to use API, so I'm just going to click on connect. And now once I click connect, it probably should give me, like, so search API. I think I just want enrichment because I just want data, and that's the key. But I want API key, right? So I can click on API keys, and I should be able to create a new key. And very simply, I'm going to say N8N test, select an API to update this with. I want to create a master key. It's not visible, so I can just simply copy this key and take it from there. Now, if I come back here, you can see there are so many options to input details. I just want to test this out. I can always test out the APIs in a single place, and then we can see what we go. So if you see, we have the LinkedIn URL here, right? So this is the LinkedIn URL, and what we can do is we'll just take a copy and paste one link from here. Right? So again, these details are available. I technically would love to, like, just use my own LinkedIn rather than, like, making anyone else's email public. Mine, I don't want mine to be public also, but again, I'll just, like, take it one for the video. So if you are liking the video till now, and I hope you are, because you are, again, if you're watching here till, right, again, please do subscribe, right? It really helps me out a lot. So we have the API key here. Again, I'm going to not show that, right? But one thing that I'm going to do is just come here, search for LinkedIn, right? And come back here, paste my own profile link here, right? And then in a second, paste the key here and test it out. So let me just scroll down so you can't see my key, and then I'll click on test. You can see, try it. Let's see what does the response come out to be. Okay, perfect. You've got a ton of information, right? And it actually got a lot about me. It got my role, it got my headline. So this is a bit old right now. I did find my email, right? Email status verified, but where is the email, right? It got my work email. So that's my work email. Now again, I'm going to hide that to some part, but again, if it can find it, I'm pretty sure you guys can also, because it found my work email, which is pretty cool, right? I think because you're also trying to reach out to more people. But also, if you see, it got so much more, right? It's so many more stuff about me. This is organization, this is department and everything, sub department. I think these things work a bit more with prediction also, right? So I see a lot of things are just predicted and XYZ. So pretty much like gray. So Twitter URL is not there. I think, like, it's not linked together or whatever, like, you know, again, I'm just getting that. That's fine. So I think still, like, you know, super cool that it was able to get all this stuff, right? And I can just technically now run this API. Now to do that, what I always love to do is like take this curl request, right, and copy this, right? I technically want to take another option and take an HTTP request node, right, and come back here and import curl, right? And I'm just going to paste the whole curl command here. And if I click import, let's see, is this working? Okay, so I think you guys can already see my, okay, perfect. So it worked once I clicked that, right? Again, it just like did, it takes a couple of seconds. So you can see all the details and everything, reveal personal details, reveal phone number, XYZ. And again, we have the API key also here. Again, I'm just going to delete the API key after this. Again, I'm not going to sit down and edit every part where it's not visible. So yeah, again, so this is the option. And then I technically just want to update this, right? And reveal personal emails. And actually then I want to test it again, right? So I want to paste my URL and see if we can do that. So we're going to test this step, right? Let's see what happens. Now it did not find, I think it did not still find my personal email. So let's see, I can just search Gmail, right? It did not, nothing is there in Gmail. So yeah, that's pretty much it, right? Again, it found whatever it could, and then we have all this information. But technically, we just need a couple of things from here, right? So again, I'm just seeing if there's anything else. And also, if you see, like, it took out so much data from my LinkedIn, so it's great that we're not going ahead and doing another whole search, which saves us query on Phantom, and then can technically do this using here, right? So this allows us for, like, you know, input, and you can see this is an information about the organization that I work at and everything else. So again, like a ton of information, right? Again, and it's go on and go on and go on. And I'm pretty sure like it will keep going like this, right? So that's pretty cool. We are just going to name this as email finder, right? And probably take some plus description, right? So in case I want to use that, I'll see if there is anything that can be used here. I think this email mostly, like, you know, again with details, and yeah, that's pretty much it. I think like that's other stuff is just like, you know, with the keywords from, like, again from the company, that does not change anything a lot. So yeah, that's fine. All right, so email finder, now we have this, which technically adds a bit more data. Obviously, like in the same format, you can get like other format, right? So if you come back here, you can see there are multiple enrichment options available, right? Revealing phone number, revealing personal phone number. So this potentially as part of a pricing plan, the default value is false and everything. I just want to showcase that I'm on a free plan with Apollo, so there are credits that it will be costing, right? So I'm pretty sure we can go to apollo.io, right? Or I can just technically refresh this and I'll be able to see how many credits has it costed me to run this, right? Because on the left, I don't know, I'm literally here, so yeah, it costed 2 credits roughly till now. But you can go to your dashboard or just go to Apollo, right, and log in, and then it will technically take you back there. So you can probably see how many credits are there on the left hand side. So again, I've not used Apollo a lot, but like, you know, again, we'll be able to view credit usage, and you can see, like, you know, it's 2 credits, right? So I think mobile usage cost obviously higher amount of credits, right? So phone numbers require 5 credits, right? Okay, so reveal phone number is true. Okay, please add a webhook URL when using a reveal phone number. Okay, so then it requires pretty much like a couple of more things, right? So that's fine. So I'm not going to do that again. Did not show in the API, and that's also once you think, like, you know, again, reveal personal phone number. Okay, so then technically it wants me to, like, say if I say true here, right, again, I believe the query will change, right? And it technically needs me to, like, you know, add a URL also, which allows it to, like, get back. So it's not like, you know, again, quickly it's going to come back, it's going to take something. Enter the webhook URL. This first should send a JSON response that includes the phone number requested. So very simply, like, then you need to create a web, and then there's another step that needs to connect to that step and then go from there. Okay, again, I hope this makes sense, but very simply, we're not going to use that. But if you want to use that, then you need to use like a webhook URL, right? So if I had to use that, I'll technically use another parameter, which is webhook URL. Put a webhook here. Again, I'll have to create that webhook separately. Perfect, we have this. Now obviously you can see, like, this works, and this works really well, so I'm super happy that it does. And we have all the, like, you know, the headers and everything, like, you know, again, all the options. We have the body and everything. I actually don't have any specific body to be sent, but yeah, you can just keep this. So I'm going to click on save, right, and click on tidy up. Perfect. Now we have this whole workflow perfectly working, right? Again, it goes and enriches data. If you see here, like, again, if you're searching, there will be like a lot of job titles that you don't want. For example, if you're working in sales, you will technically want to go to decision makers, right? So one thing that we can do is we can put some other conditions here and everything. But if you, again, let's come back to our whimsical. Can we find leads? Yes, we can find leads using LinkedIn. Can we get more data about? Yes. Can we do contact info plus signals, right? So we have got the contact info. Again, signals are like, you know, other, like if the company is sending some newsletters or something like that. But now this is like looks like a super simple workflow which just works, right? But it still does not change a lot of the factors, right? So for example, if I want to do a couple of things here, right, and that's where you start really making the agent better, and which is like, you know, the fun part now. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create an option called do you want email and put email ID here, right? Again, technically give this control here, and this is going to be true or false, right? Again, I can also, like, instead of this, technically convert this into a checkbox, right? So I can just insert and then technically make it a checkbox, right? So tick box, perfect, and then this is going to get deleted, and this I want email, right? And if this is checked, then only should this get triggered and get me an email ID. Another thing that I'm going to do here is, and which is where we're going to use AI, is very simply get output. Before that, I'm going to run an advanced AI option, technically create a simple, like, I technically can create an agent which solves the point, but also, like, again, it's probably an overkill here. I'm just going to define below, check the designation of the, and then again, I technically just want to output this because again, we did not, the response is not saved or something. Check the designation mentioned below, CEO, senior leader. I technically need to delete this, so I can just run this normally, right? And that's one thing that, you know, you always like, okay, it's still running, stop this. I just want to test this step because output will run right now quickly, right? Again, so I can get that. Now what I'm going to do is, in this I'm going to define, like, you know, check the details. If the doesn't not obviously this, example CEO, CXO, etc. Reply with no. In addition to that, I can also put some other conditions, like for example, I can put, like, again, very simply take this information, right? So you have the job title, right? And I'm going to define that. So I'm going to take this, here is the job title, right? And then again paste this. Now again, I'm also going to say time and role, and then I'm going to take, like, you know, again, very simply, you saw, remember this, like, you know, job date range, right? I think they're, like, you know, their influence level is going to be pretty low, right? Again, in the organization, because they've just joined, like, you know, again, if someone has just joined, okay, reply with no, reply in the following format, right? And we can do this, right? Let's do a step more, right? Again, and this also, when you think, like, you know, you start building stuff, right? Reply in the following JSON format, right? And I want is two things: job title or a decision maker, and I'm going to say yes or no, and then again I'm going to say influence if the job date range is less than 6 months, but say hi. We are just going to come back here, click on chat model. I already have multiple of them linked, so I'm just going to select OpenAI, YouTube task. That's my, like, again, I'm technically just, instead of OpenAI account, maybe that's the one that's working. Okay, so I'm just going to use GPT. I want to use GPT O3 mini or O4 mini, right? Now that's probably overkill for this, but again, it just works. I don't think I have got access to that till now, so that's fine. We have also, like, you know, again, what we can do is frequency penalty, retries or something. It's that, but again, this will work, right? So this is going to put this here, right? Again, test the step, right? So let's test the step, right? Again, it should technically run one by one, and that's the best thing about, I think, like, you know, there are 10 items, so it's going to run one by one for each, right? So this is going to be a problem because then I need to split that. And that's also, when you're doing a live build, you see the problems that are there. It's not simple and easy as we think, right? There's a lot to do. So you can see the output is there in JSON format, decision maker no, hi, and everything else, and you can see it comes as a table is like this, right? Again, but we still like to require this output format, and then we can do this. So now what I'm going to do is select an auto fixing. I just want a decision maker, right? So I'm just going to define generate from JSON example, and technically say this is going to be decision maker, and then I'm just going to take it to influence. So decision maker, let's say this, and we're just going to look at this and then technically try to run this again. But yeah, let's just run this again. I think this should work again and probably get a much better output. The only thing, like, you can see it's running, so it's got output as decision maker low and everything, and you can see the output being there. Now what we can do is, if someone's decision making output is low, right? So what I can do is, like, you know, very simply flow and select if, right? So I'm going to, if value of decision maker is equal to, like, you know, again, is equal to no, right? Then technically I should not just like, again consider that. Then technically it does not make sense, right? Again, we technically want decision maker, yes, and then also influence high, because if someone is a decision maker but does not influence a lot, then maybe there. But again, it's up to you. I'm just showing an example, right? Again, if not a decision maker, right? Again, let's see, we're just going to keep this, or technically I just want people who are decision makers and has high influence. So if like again influence is equal to yes and influence is equal to high, right? So these are the kind of people I want, right? And if that is the case, if a decision maker, right, do this, else do nothing, like literally nothing, right? No operation, do nothing, right? So that's it. Like I don't want them to do anything. Like, it's not a decision maker, just like put them in another sheet or something like that. We can do that, right? So that we don't lose data. But like what I will do is just like add another sheet, or just like I'm just going to write this data down, right? Because again, sales is like a very critical function. They can't waste time with people who don't have authority to do something, but they might be able to use that data to find people from some other places and everything else, right? So what I'm going to do is again duplicate this node, right? The only thing we are going to change here is instead of sheet 1, we're going to change this into data dump, right? And then very simply you have one place where you have high decision makers and then one place where you don't, right? That's the idea of the workflow, right? And that's where I need to explain you that it's not easy, right? Again, I'm getting ideas as I'm building, right? And that's where you will start seeing, like again, technically a lot of times I'll start here, right, in the sketchboard, right? Okay, here are the options and everything, but when I'm trying something new, which is like again not worked a lot on the GTM pipelines as such, right? Most of my work is like in a lot of customer support operations automations or back office operations automations and everything else. But yeah, this also works. Okay, perfect. So now that we have this, right, again, we have got somewhere, right? Again, we are finding better profiles, right? Number one, we are able to technically like utilize better options, right? Like again, we are not like getting everyone, we are getting like a certain set of people, right? That's very important, right? And we can now go to the next step, where is technically like again, we got the email, but also it's not getting updated. And the reason behind that is I don't want everyone to get updated. So I want to just say like again if condition again, but technically I need a sheets. I need to go ahead and see get data from sheets, right? So get rows in sheet and then come here very simply Google Sheets account. This is the one. Select get rows from list, choose N8N replica. Select the sheet as being sheet 1, and then the filters being very simply do you want email, value being true, and if this is there, and then also email ID is technically not empty, right? So if you see here again, I want to put a not empty field or something like that. For that I need to see like what would be the expression for not empty. So again, come back to ChatGPT, and that's why you have to keep using AI to build that. What is the N8N expression to see if a field is not empty? So not this email ID, so it's in JavaScript, right? Again, so N8N allows you to write in JavaScript, right? Again, so if I want just like not empty, right? Again, so do you want the email is true, right? At least email ID is empty string. So right, if email ID is empty, I think this should also work. And now if I select and, should work. Yeah, perfect. Should be getting one. Perfect. This works, right? Again, it just needed to be empty, nothing else. This is called overthinking, and when you're trying to do this, like you've done this probably 4 or 5 times, but again you're using just different options. Okay, but it's fine, right? Again, get places, get where you want email, right? So this actually like saves you a ton of costs, and also like again figures out, okay, you only select the places where you want email from. Right now looks better. Very simply going to put a profile URL, and then whichever profile URL we are getting, or like webhook URL, I don't want that, so I'm just going to keep this reveal phone number to false and keep all of those things, right? So no body parameters as such, there is nothing that we are sending, right? But just keep it there, keep all of these parts. And the next thing that I'm going to do is come back to an updater row. So again, come back to sheets, again select and select updater row, and you can see append or updater row, right? So technically I just want to update, right? So I can change the option from here, right? Again, I want to just update a row, and from list again select the different account, choose list as N8N replica. I should have an option just to select this always, like again for some reason, because I have like multiple accounts there running, and then map each column manually. Actually, okay, but I just like want like again very simply execute previous nodes. Let's see what comes out, right? Node executed successfully. So we've got Dinky, well, whatever, like again very simply I'm just going to put this as a profile URL, right? Put this profile URL right? And then technically, like, these are the values to update. Column to match on is profile URL. I don't want this to be updated, then that's the profile that we need to match. But email ID is something that I will technically find here, and then that's where you find the email ID of someone, and you can just put that there, right? Again, so it works out pretty well, right? Again, we can just keep this and again update this, and update email. Right now, again, I think, like, we've got the options, we've got the data, we are enriching that, we have got getting the email of only the things that we want. So again, if someone doesn't fit that bracket, we can technically get rid of that. And then finally we come to probably what we want to do is just test this step also. So it should be working, and we should get an email ID here updated in a second. Let's see, hopefully it hasn't. Okay, did not work out, need to understand why. So profile URL of, instead of this, right, again, and this is where technically, because there will be some space, so you should take it from the original, right? So where you are updating the original from, take that, right? So again, very simply test this step now, it should work, and it will definitely work, and you will see it's updated, right? Okay, perfect, awesome, good to go. Close this, come back to now. Here I'm just going to rename this to, like, JSON output parser, right? Perfect, have the options. I don't like, like this tidying up and like getting so close. Like, this should be like a bit here. I want to see the names, or I'll just look at this and, like, rename this to open. Yeah, so right, so again, now tidy up works better. Perfect, save this. Okay, got pretty close to what we want. Now the only thing that is left, right, is just to technically just have like a single place where you can generate more information and, like, an email from them, and technically have that. So what I need to do is, now there are two ways. We can directly send an email automatically, or we can just keep a draft email ready, right? Now it's completely up to us, but just for our testing purposes, I'm just going to keep like a draft email ready from here. So again, update the email, and then I'm going to run a third part, right, which is just goes and says again on if condition, right? So very simply, I don't want to generate emails for the people that we don't have emails for. So always you have to think logically, okay, if these are three separate things that I need to do, here is how I'm going to do them, right? So I'm just going to do is, like, very simply take this, duplicate this part, right, get where you want email, delete this, connect this part to here, bring this thing here, and do this, tidy again, and then get where you want email. Now again, in the end, what we're going to do is very simply just create a final email, and then technically, like, just store it in the whole prompt. So what we're going to do is, like, I can like ask ChatGPT to write a great prompt, and I'm technically going to do that. Just like, technically take this whole thing, right, and go here. So technically write a great prompt to allow to utilize all the information, and create a cold email, predict promoting a specific service listed in the prompt. Right, technically, because it's a template, you want people to be able to use it, right? Again, we can give it more information, but again, this is pretty much it, right? Again, we are just going to ask it to do a prompt. Now again, obviously you can input an image and everything else, right? But like, very simply, you have this, and then again, one thing I'm going to ask you to do is the information. This is using, so what I'm going to do is copy paste, right, again, and if you paste this, you will see there will be a lot of issues, because all this information is not possible, right? Again, they can't find this information. So if I'll have to see, like, very simply, first name and last name come in this format, right? So what I'm going to do is ask it to do add JSON in this format in front of all details, right? Again, now based on this, again, it will create a prompt. Like, obviously this, like, just for an example, I'll technically writing the most of my prompts myself, right? Because again, most of the time ChatGPT is not really great, right? But again, for right now, meta prompting and work, and as you can see, service description does not exist, so something that we'll have to create. But pretty good, like, going good, it can create one. Now what I have to just do is take this and connect it to the same chat model, right? Again, I have like pretty much cleared, and the only thing that we have to do is, in the form submission, I'm going to create another field which is going to be about the service, or like, add form element, service to be promoted, right? And another thing that I have started doing now is add form element and simply say additional instructions to AI, right? Now with both of these things, my job becomes easier, because then every time, like, most of the times people come, we want this, we want that, and XYZ, and all of those things, right? Again, all of the things that technically, like, again, they could have done that, or XYZ and whatever, right? Again, so let's see, it will start like, again, like put a prompt, stop listening, I need to copy the URL, right? Copied. So technically you can open the URL, right? And this is where you'll see the form. So again, I'm just going to put test, right? Test both here, services to be promoted, test, additional instruction to test, submit that. And given that's a test, it will not run anything, and you get the information here. What I'm going to come here is do now execute previous nodes. Perfect, it did execute. It's pretty fast because there is nothing that there's no API calls, it's just read options there, right? So again, the only thing I need to do is JSON and technically take that to be service to be promoted here. And now obviously you can do a couple of things here also. You can technically change this, do some couple of things here and there, but again we're just going to keep it simple right now. Service to be promoted, and then finally introduce. You can see like, ChatGPT does not do a bad job just to write massive prompts, but to see the quality of it and everything, you have to test multiple times and everything. And I'm just going to write additional instructions by user, right? And there is another way to do this, right? What we can do is take the whole prompt and put it in as a system message, right? And that could be there. So you have a system message here, you can copy and paste this whole thing here and just take the final thing. Yeah, it's there, right? Again, you can see additional instructions to AI. It's like in the last line, right? So what I can do is just copy this whole thing, right? Copy paste this and paste it here. So the system message is there, it's fixed, and then I can keep editing this part of the prompt as I do. This allows you to be a bit more flexible with all the prompts and really helps, right? So again, just change this to email generation, right? And do that and rename this. Perfect, done. This will be able to generate an email. Now again, obviously you can connect either a Gmail node which you can send out, but I'm not going to send out any email. I'm just going to update the sheet. So again, Google Sheets, select that and select on update a sheet, update a row in a sheet. I can technically, again, I think we did this here, right, as an update an email. So I'm just going to duplicate this step, right, again, just to save time, and delete this, right, update an email. And here we are going to technically map each column. It's going to be profile URL, but again, for that it needs to execute the previous nodes, because it will now, I think, go ahead and run the email also. We'll be able to see the quality of email that has come is okay-ish. Again, you can update that a lot more with the details. And again, I'm probably like in the template that I attach with this is going to be like, again, much better prompt and like a bit more tested. But profile URL, very simply, do you want your email, and I want this profile URL, and then in this I technically need one more column, right? And I want to add another column. One thing that I always do is keep the columns which are more important to the user on the left hand side and the right hand side, because it's more or less data that they are not really going to look at on a regular basis. Like, I mean, they're not going to see everything, but I'm just going to say draft email, right, and put the draft email here. One thing that you can do is whenever you need to refresh, there's nothing to do, just come back here and click on refresh. It will fetch another column, and it would have fetched out, yes, it has fetched out this draft email. And I'm going to take email generation, take this output, put this here, and that's pretty much voila. Right now, one thing that I can do is, just for clarity, is like, again, in the addition, I can say reply with in proper markdown format, right? So let's see if it works. We are just going to test this step again, and should work. Again, it should not be an issue at all. It's probably going to be a bit wonky. Yeah, perfect, got the email. Did I mess up the, yeah, I think I messed up the column, right? Yeah, I knew. So this should be here, right? And technically other columns are not required, right? So again, this should just be, again, I just need to drag and drop this here, right? So that's pretty much it, and test the step here now. And technically you can see the subject line available here, right? So very simply, if I just drag this out, you will be able to see whole email, right? And like, you can, like, obviously, like, again, we're doing this in very random, so the email looks, obviously that's where the test comes in and everything else, right? But again, we can, like, obviously it's a decent email, decent works around. You will have your best company and everything. You can add those details also and just go from there. So update email content, right, and rename this, and we will be good to go. So let's see, tidy up the workflow, see everything working. We want the email, if the email exists, this gets connected there. Email generation, this AI agent is to rename and check quality, kind of like it, quality of leads, and do that, right? So now let's do a final task, which technically takes all of this together and finally runs this, right? Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back to LinkedIn, right, again, and let's come back to LinkedIn. So let's actually, you can see Shantanu Deshpande. Let's try Bombay Shaving Company, right? Or let's try Shantanu itself, right? Bombay Shaving, because it will, like, it technically, like, you will be searching for specific people, specific industries, right? This is the URL, right? Let's just copy this and see what happens. Hopefully works. So test workflow, right? Again, fingers crossed everything works. Put keywords. So it's to be promoted, let's say a perfect shaving cream never seen before, because it's a, like, very simply, it's the company is about creating razors and everything. So again, let's see the test version of your form. Submitted, your response has been recorded. Okay, check quality of leads has a problem. Model output doesn't fit required format. Okay, that probably came out with the problem with output parser, right? So debug that. It found the data, right, or not? No, it did not. Okay, so I know the problem is not here. The problem is like information going in wasn't there. You remember we forward a wait node, right? So technically we need a technically 1 minute wait here. So again, technically you can just save this, tidy up, right, again the workflow, and then this will work now. If I click from here, it will wait for a minute, execute that, and run the workflow normally. But if you see, the first layer goes first. If you're using N8N for the first time, the first layer goes first, so it will be the first row, then the second row, then the third row. So it just goes one by one from there. Again, we're at the end of this, so really hoping this works out, and we're just going to fast forward this piece. Okay, perfect. It got the output, right, again. So what we're going to do is, because it, like, it tried to find data from here, that also shows another problem again. This technically then should be in a separate agent, because this will keep causing errors. Like, I would technically want like the wait to exist here, and then this goes as a different node. So what I'm going to do is, this nodes, or like this node will get attached to this one. So move this up, and have a node attached to here, and technically this gets attached here. Let's see if there is something here. Perfect, good to go. And then now I should be able to run this without, like, again, just like run this from a test perspective, because I don't need any links or anything. I'm just going to say the best never seen before shaving cream, right, and LinkedIn search URL test. Like these things don't matter right now. I'm just going to click submit. This should technically start working, right? Again, it's going to wait for a minute, and then again technically get the output. Now it should not, like right now you might think that it's not needed, but it's needed, because I'm still going to use like this particularly here, and then again tidy up. So wait, should not have deleted that, right? You can see, like, edit fields, it sends out for the finding profiles, so I can keep finding the profiles without the whole aspect of like this running. And as you can see, there is no information and data here. So what I'm going to also do is go to sheet 1 and delete this information, so we see how does the fresh data looks like, right? And I can just delete this. That deletes other problems also, so I'm just going to delete from here and technically take this whole thing and delete till the end, right? That's good. So perfect, come to the top, and then you get like a lot of information. Like, only things, like, for me, like, just here is where you will start figuring out stuff and everything. And in the meantime, what we can do is we can add a note, right? So always love notes, because very simply here we'll be writing a note with markdown, right? And this is like N8N replica, right? Features, and I'm just going to write features. So find data from LinkedIn, enrich with Apollo. And like, again, if you're writing markdown, this is how it starts looking. So obviously I need this to be a bit bigger, so I'm going to write in 3 parts, and then again creates automated emails, right? It's 1 minute, feels so long, right, when you're just recording and stuff. I'm just figuring out that for the first time, and N8N replica is probably going to be the biggest, right? So again, and then obviously you can change the color. I like reddish a bit better, right? So that's what we're going to do. So yeah, find data from LinkedIn, enrich with, like, data, create automated emails, and then obviously you can do like a couple of hyperlinking, right? So you can say created by Akshat Bahety, right? And then what you can do is also like go ahead and take your YouTube link and paste that here, and then again, like, put that here. Also add like an emoji or something till that is happening, right? So YouTube or like video, and then just put that as a video, or like game. Perfect. This just gives you a bit more option to promote yourself when you're sending out your workflows and agents. And then also put in instructions here, right? Again, I'm just putting this here again for my own use case, but you will do a lot more things that are required. Okay, perfect. We are waiting for a pretty long time now. I think it's been more than a minute. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to stop this, right? Because for I think there is some issue with the runtime, but what I'm going to say is 1 second, because this works. Is this working, or is there some issue with this whole thing? Finally, it started running, right? Again, just like right now, you can see it's running the output parser, right? And then based on that, it's going to run this. Column names were updated after the node setup, so you can see there is another issue that has just come up. And then what we can do is, again, refresh column names. Again, should be okay, not an issue at all, right? If I test this step now, it will work out. Now, the one thing is, like, testing takes another whole amount of time that you need to, right? Again, if you can see, technically then we need to like again match the columns because we have changed the nodes and everything else. So that's going to take some time. Instead of boring you guys, I'm just going to fast forward that, right? So you can see get output, and then it's going to be that item, right? So okay, so the problem being, I think the output is this, and then yeah, but it's fine, only the output of the quality of information is going to come here, right? So it's fine, we're just going to take that and put that. So very simply put the full name and then do the same thing for everything, right? So it's fine, we'll just take a couple of seconds. Okay, let's literally run this finally. And then I've removed the first part because it takes time and everything else. You have the weight set at a very minimal, right? Again, I'm just going to submit this with blank because I already have the information data, right? Again, and then we'll start seeing, like, it will go ahead, check all the information, right? Again, and then right now I've kept it to append sheet because there is no information. I was testing a couple of things, right? And then it will go ahead and run this, and we should start seeing data available here, right? I think there is some data at the end or something available here in some format, but yeah, we can start seeing the content coming up, right? And we can see, like, really we can just change the color. That's one formatting that error that is coming up, but that's fine, you guys can figure that out very easily. One thing that I just need to see is we've got 6 items here, and I think I've forgotten to change the sheet here because I duplicated the input from top. So yeah, this needs to change the sheet to from list sheet 1 to data dump. So it will automatically should map select column to match on. Technically, you will need to map out every column again just to make this run. But yeah, again, this runs pretty well, right? Again, you have the information available, you can map those things. You'll see, like, again, the ones at the end are actually the data dump columns that should not have been here. So yeah, we can just, like, remove them and go from there. So pretty much, like, again, we've got the data, we've got the profiles and everything else. Now again, technically where I want the email, right? So I had to remove the checkboxes because there were some other issues that were coming. So again, I'm just going to write, let's say I want the email for first 2 people, right? And I'm going to just again, I'm just going to, like, run the other part of the workflow. So I'm just did not connect them, right? I can just submit this randomly because not required. Just running this for the sake of running this, and it will technically now be able to update the email. And you can see, like, we've got a couple of emails here, right? So did I forget to change the, yeah, I forgot to change the value where the email is getting updated, right? So this is fine, but I think this email is here, but yeah, the email ID got deleted, and that's one thing that you need to see, right? So I'll show you where the problem is. So when you're updating email content, the email ID is going away, and the reason behind that is because we kept this to empty. So these 2 things need to go away, right? But again, because the email is there, it's overwriting that between those columns and XYZ. So I'll technically again run this. Again, I'm just going to delete these 2 steps right now so that I don't run that. But let's see, test workflow, right? Again, submit this. Again, I need to change this from, like, a form submission to probably, like, something better. But you'll see that we have got the emails now again, and you can see the company or something like that, and then we have, like, again, some kind of, like, email created. Now this and all, I'll technically want to, like, have, like, overflow so that I don't need to, like, see and, like, distribute my whole content being disrupted, and then you have this information available. And obviously you have the final workflow ready. You can use it as required. You can add it email, you can add a sending option also in the same format as here. So what you can do is you can create, like, do you want to send the email, create another column on that, and then just go from there, right? Now, given that I've recorded this thing for a pretty long time, and I'm just going to say that it has taken roughly around 2 hours, even 2.5 hours or something. The recording after editing some changes would be probably around 40-45 minutes. But the goal being to tell you that it takes a lot of time. And again, there are, like, just small things with the JavaScript notation, like, you'll have to figure that out. You need to write the prompt or something else. So all of these things take time. So whenever you are thinking of building some kind of an actual production level workflow, it will take you much longer than what you think. And that's one thing that you need to be very, very cognizant of when you are running all of these things, okay? But yeah, that's pretty much it. I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, please, it takes a lot of effort to record content like this, and a lot of time and a lot of effort. Please go ahead and like, share and subscribe this. Please share this anywhere that you can to your friends or anything, and do hit that subscribe button. Most of you don't, and it really helps me out a lot. See you in the next one. Bye bye.